What is up, my friends? Welcome back to the Home Slice. Today we've got a triple test. Now I ran out of the 40 millimeter manila rope, and so I wanted to test this K390 stretch that was sent to me by Sal and the kind folks at Spyderco. But I don't have much manila rope left after the 15V plowed through about 6 feet of it, and so I figured it would be interesting to do a comparison on what I have come to call the death rope. You can see on screen what the initial best readings were for each knife. This is on a 400 grit Atoma stone on one side and a Veneve 3 to 5 micron OCB resin bonded diamond stone. Now let's talk about this rope. This rope is some form of like Dyneema. It's like high tensile polymer rope. It's been used on a ship, and so it's chock full of like salts and sand and whatnot, little bits of grit, and it's not a very precise test because of that, because it's not exactly controlled all of the variables. But what I find with this test is that this test includes a little bit of toughness information about the steel as well as just wear resistance, because as the steel's going through and hitting some kind of hard particles, if a steel can survive this test, if a steel can go through the death rope at all, it's a phenomenal steel with a good balance of wear resistance and toughness. I find ones that lack in enough alloy or enough carbide peter out really quick and round over in this rope. And yet, sometimes steels that have a really high carbide volume will chip out and not make it all the way through the rope. So it seems like a steel's got to nail a pretty specific balance to even survive and make it through. I've had tons of knives that didn't even make it through this death rope, like didn't even come close. And MagnaCut, I think, has been one of the best sort of results of this test. It managed to stay under 500 grams on the best reading. Afterward, it was in a Spyderco Mule, probably 62 to 63 Rockwell, but also CPM4 has made it through by Spyderco. Manly Knives S90V, some custom 10V has made it through this rope before. So there's a handful of steels that have made it through. Probably about half of the steels that I have tested have actually made it through the death rope, and the other half have not. I had high hopes for these three because I think that they all exhibit an excellent level of edge retention, and K390 being the lowest edge retaining steel of the three, but very high toughness comparatively. And then, of course, the 15V last week we tested, and it cut through the 40 millimeter manila rope 72 times. And so I figured it should do pretty well with this test. The Maxamet having cut through the 40 millimeter manila rope 60 times. But I was a bit concerned. I've tested Maxamet on the death rope before, and the initial dual grit edges that I put on it, as well as the edges where I tried to expose fresh carbide, didn't go through the rope at all, and they actually wore out. Now, at that time, I was not nearly as skilled or versed in putting dual grit edges on really high alloy steels, and I didn't even have all of the gear that I have now to do everything in diamond all the way through. And so I was hopeful for this test, but I was a little bit worried that Maxamet might chip out with that low level of toughness. But to my surprise and delight, it did very well. All of these knives actually achieved the death rope cut. You can see K390 was the fastest. It's being tested on the best machine now. K390 actually, with its higher level of toughness, actually got the lowest post rope cut best reading, reaching down closer to that 500 mark. And that's sort of to be expected for me. I figured the 15V will probably make it through, but the knives that have more of a clear balance between toughness and edge retention, with those numbers being somewhat more in the middle, tend to do better on this test. However, each of these did an amazing job with the death rope test, and I don't know that I could tell a huge difference after the first, 30 to 45 seconds. I think the first 30 to 45 seconds, I could feel that the K390 had a lot of grab with that dual grit edge, and it got through a significant amount of rope pretty quickly. Although you can see now that the Maxamet and 15V are both also done. So this is not sped up the video, it's all in real time, and so this is the amount of time that it took me to cut through that rope. It's a very quick rope cut test for each of these. A lot of the time I have to wrestle with this death rope for a long time to get through it. So very, very pleased. You can see the final best scores now with the K390 coming in at 538. The 15V and Maxamet really, really close to the same level with the 15V, just a slightly better reading. I think that that's due to the increased toughness, and I think that's about what I would have expected from this test, but it's fun to sort of see these amazing, amazing steels duke it out. Thanks to Spyderco for sending me the K390 and 15V. Thank you, Andrew, for sending this Maxamet, and thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great day. Peace out, my friends.